Hello there. So, something happened recently which I found very amusing, and I want to talk a little bit about it. So, my dad was digging in the garden, getting ready to put stuff in. This happened about a month ago or so. He comes running into the house, and he says, "Look what I found! Look what I found!" And he brings up this. So it's a rusty old spearhead. Absolutely beaten to heck. Quite badly made too, but it's a cool find, look. It's even got like a little bit of the wooden handle preserved. What an interesting find this is. Now, my dad, knowing his son, is not fooled. So I look at this and I think for a second. I remember making this. I remember the whole story surrounding it. So I made this about 15 years ago or so. I was trying to teach myself how to make arrowheads, and when you're making an arrowhead, this socket here is actually a really tricky thing to put together because it's so fine and delicate. So I figured that to practice it, I'd do a scaled up version, which is generally a good way to practice these little fiddly things. So I made maybe a half a dozen of these. Well, obviously I'm going to play around with it, so I put some handles on them and I just thrown them at a target I'd set up. I think it was just like a plastic flower pot on a stick, which I'd put in the ground and just throw at from various angles. Now, obviously, I missed more often than I hit. So one of the ones that I missed, it went into the garden, and I figure it must have hit a stick or something, or a log that was buried in there. Because when I pulled out the handle, the head didn't come with it. So this has just been sitting in the garden for 15 years. So it amuses me to think that, what if my parents had sold their house and this was some random person digging this up in the garden? What would they think of this? Would they think, oh my god, I found some Indian artifact from the fur trade days or something like that? Or would it be like some crackpot's conspiracy stuff? Oh no, I found like I found a spear from the Vikings when they came down to Ontario, which they didn't. Now, something like this would never confuse an archaeologist in that way. You look at the rust here. Let's see if I can get this to focus a little bit better. There we go. So the way that it's rusted is typical of modern steel. Historical steel rusts in a sort of linear way. You can really see the grain of the metal, kind of like almost like a rope. Modern steel doesn't rust like historical steel, so this would never fool an archaeologist or a historian or a blacksmith into thinking it was some ancient thing. Like, this is clearly a modern artifact. So this would be a fairly harmless hoax. You just confuse the heck out of some filthy casuals. But thinking about that, it really gets the mischievous side of my brain excited. And makes me think, you know what? It would be really fun to make a bunch of treasure. Make them all really rough quality so that it's absolutely clear this is handmade. Make them look proper rusty and old. I'm going to throw one in the creek. I'm going to put this one in the hollow stump. And I'm going to wedge this one up in a tree somewhere. And just scatter these things for someone to find in 5-10 years or whatever. I don't know why that appeals to me so much. I just think it would be really charismatic. Another sort of related thought I had recently, I watched a movie called The Dig, which is a movie about the Sutton Hoo excavations. If you don't know about those, you should. They're really cool. Go look up some of the art. Look up the reconstruction Sutton Hoo helmet. It is just a magnificent thing. So this was a movie with... His name is spelt Ralph Fiennes. I know it's not pronounced Ralph Fiennes. It's either Ralph Phineas? It's either Ralph Phineas or Rafe Fiennes. It better not be Rafe Phineas. Like, it's okay to have one name that's spelled... It's okay to have one name that's spelt funny. It's not okay to have two names that are spelt funny. It's a movie with Ralph Fiennes. It's pretty good. I recommend it. But it got me thinking about that whole sort of... They're probably never going to find another Sutton Hoo. They might, It's within the realm of possibility, but they're probably not going to find another Sutton Hoo burial. So I watched this movie and it sort of gets me thinking about what are future archaeologists going to discover of us? I sort of feel like archaeologists hundreds of years down the line digging up our modern period, they're not going to have a very good time of it. Because we got a lot of metal work, sure, we got a lot of pottery and stuff like that, but probably the majority of our material culture nowadays is made out of petroleum distillates. And the thing about petroleum distillates is that they decay weird. So all of our plastic material culture, it isn't going to be preserved. Preservation is not one of the potential characteristics of plastic. It's got a short half-life, so even in ideal conditions, it will just degrade down to toxic gunk. All of these future archaeologists, they're digging through a trash heap in the present day. Most of what they're going to be digging up is just poisonous sludge, which is not my idea of charismatic archaeology. Charismatic archaeology to me is stuff like this. And I also think about our material culture habits. Our modern day people are not being buried with burial goods. Our modern day millionaires are not getting put in pyramids and grand golden tombs full of statues of Anubis. Most often they're just being buried in their suit. Some people might get buried with like their wedding ring or their Masonic ring or their engineer's ring or something like that. People might get buried with a couple of little things that are important, but modern day soldiers aren't getting buried with their Kalashnikovs. We're not sending people into the afterlife with all of these things that they're going to need. A couple of years ago there was a series of articles that were making the rounds on the internet. They found the last pharaoh's tomb. They have lists of pharaohs from the period. They know all of their names, they know when they all lived, and now they know where all of them were buried. They found every single pharaoh's tomb. And when I hear pharaoh's tomb, I start thinking stuff like King Tut. This room packed to the ceiling with treasures and cool things and golden artifacts. They had some pictures with these articles. What it was an empty room with some broken pots on the floor and some really cracked and damaged wall paintings. It was not exciting. It was rather underwhelming. They knew the story of this place. They'd known the story of this place long before they found it. So this pharaoh had been buried here, and then the tomb had been flooded not too long into that. So they'd gone in and they'd lugged all the stuff out and they put it somewhere else. They found the other place that it was put long time ago. Long time ago. Now they found the original place. It sort of makes me sad to think about Egyptian archaeology. They're never going to find another pharaoh's tomb. This was the last one. There is now no potential in the future for another King Tut. They might find some wealthy aristocrat. That's entirely possible. They're not going to find another pharaoh. I have these sort of vague memories of when I was a kid and first reading about... I read a really good book about Howard Carter. And it sort of sparked this sense of wonder and excitement at the potential of what could exist out there. And as an adult, that feeling is really rare. When I saw this article, they found the last pharaoh's tomb, I felt a little bit of that sense of excitement and wonder. And then when I actually read the article, it's like, oh, well. The previous generations have robbed us of that excitement and wonder. They've been too good at their jobs. Now, none of these tombs were in pristine condition. They were all looted thousands and thousands of years ago, often not long after they were initially put together. But the looters left us something. Even when they went in and completely desecrated them, like chopped open all the sarcophagi with axes and hacked away at the mummies to dig inside them looking for treasures, they left us something to find, even if it's just some busted mummies and busted sarcophagi. Nowadays, what archaeologists do, what they've done since archaeology became a thing, is they go in there and they lug everything out and they put it in museums, or they put it in archives, or they put it in private collections for people to look at, people to research, people to buy. It just makes me feel sad. And makes me feel doubly sad to know that we're not really replacing that stuff. We're not making our own archaeology for the future generations to discover and wonder at. We're just making kind of concrete bunkers and toxic ooze. So, returning to the point of this thing, and that mischievous idea that I had, so I think it would be really charismatic to make some fake burial mounds. Take your fiberglass canoe, the one with the hole in it that you're not using anymore, take it out in the back 40, and then fill it full of treasure. So I'll take my old chainmail coat from my reenactment days. I never use that anymore. I never used it back then. I was never a real reenactor. Put that in there. Take my third favorite sword, the one that I don't really care that much about, put that in there. Take some glass wampum beads, put that in there, and this, that, and the other. All this little cool stuff that I can do without. Get some like copper piping and like cut little sections out of it and carve something into them. Make a bunch of shiny copper rings. You get this canoe all filled up and then you bury it over out in the back 40, and then you lie to the young ones. This is the important part. You have to lie to all the young ones in your life, your little cousins, your kids, your grandkids, all your little friends. So they come and they ask you, what's this hill out in the back of your property? It's kind of weird and conspicuous. It doesn't look natural. And you can say, well, that's an old Indian burial mound. Or, less maliciously, you can say, well, that's where the goblins live. Don't go playing on that or you'll disturb the fairies and they'll turn you into a newt. That's the goblin mound. Don't go playing on the goblin mound. Right? We don't go near the goblin mound. Okay? So time passes, you're long dead, and your great-grandkids or whatever, they're thinking, you know what, I bet there's something cool under that ancient Indian burial mound. Let's get the archaeologists in. So they come in and or maybe they just get out there with a shovel and start looking for treasure. Think, what the? This is a fiberglass canoe, or whatever's left of a fiberglass canoe. This was a fiberglass canoe at some point, and it's got, this looks like a coat of chainmail, and like, here's a bunch of spearheads. What the? This doesn't make any sense. And here's some wampum beads, and then here's a Nintendo Switch, and it just confuse the heck out of people and make their day just a little bit richer. And I just really like that idea, and I just kind of had to. So I don't know what the heck this video is. My dad found a spearhead, and these are just some thoughts. Ta-ta.